Thank you, Venerable Sumati, for agreeing to come to us and share your wisdom with us. It's an honor to have you here in this class, in this just open talk. Venerable Sumati did his 3-year retreat at Diamond Mountain with his wonderful wife, and we had the honor to have her as a guest in our previous open talk. Lama Sarahni is a great teacher, and they do it both all together. They teach ACI for a long time, since 2006 or something. Yeah. And it's great to have such a great teacher here in our meeting and to listen his words, and he teaches a lot. So I'm happy to see you here, dear Lama Sumati. Thank you for coming.
Well, you're welcome. I'm sorry with the confusion last week, but we're here now and ready to go.
It's great. Thank you.
Now, will the translation be simultaneous?
Yes. So please, let's be slowly.
So you can interpret for us and will not get anything done.
Just make pauses. You can speak normally, but make pauses.
Okay, I'll try.
Thank you so much. And it's hard to translate Venerable Sumati. For me, it's hard. And I was worried if I can understand him really, because sometimes I cannot, and some words are missing for me. And thank you, dear translators. Today we have translation to Russian and Ukrainian. And thank you, dear translators, for your for being with us and not being scared. We will try to speak slowly, make pauses. Venerable Sumati is a great teacher. He teaches. I was in Diamond Mountain in 2000. I don't remember, 1920, when I got a White Tara retreat there with Venerable Sumati and Lama Sarahni, and we made white tormas, beautiful cakes. It was so nice and amazing. It was in New Year celebration, and it was very sweet retreat. And here, could you please, dear Sumati, share something about you personally, about your spiritual way? How did you came to Dharma? How did you start your spiritual career? What brought you here and why?
Okay. Well, my Dharma career started with a tragedy. Geshe Michael talks about how something has to wake you up. And what woke me up and my wife up was the death of her parents in a private plane crash. And they were my best friends besides my wife. And we didn't understand why such loving people could die. It wasn't fair. And so my lovely wife went on a pilgrimage of sorts to try and find an answer to that question. And she studied theosophy, a variety of other different philosophies. And finally, His Holiness, the Dalai Lama, came to Tucson to give a teaching. And she went to that, and it changed our lives because she saw it as what as the philosophy she had been looking for. It explained why we had had this tragedy happen. So we both started studying and went to teachings that normally were in Tibetan and had to be translated. And I actually have a funny story about that. We went to a teaching by Geshe Sultan Gyaltsen, and we got our Bodhisattva vows from him. And when we came back from a break, he started speaking in English. And I looked at my lovely wife, and she looked at me, and we both thought, hey, we understand Tibetan. And he looked at his translator and paused for his translator to translate. And his translator said, Geshe-la, you were speaking in English. So we didn't know how to translate. We just were lucky that he was talking in English. So we were very pleased when one day we got a flyer, and the flyer said there was a Geshe Michael Roach coming to Tucson to teach the diamond cutter. Well, we just saw that he was an American monk and figured maybe the teaching would be in English. So we went, and of all the courses we could have chosen to go to first was diamond cutter. And you can imagine someone who knew virtually nothing about the Dharma being immersed into the diamond cutter. But Geshe Michael was a captivating speaker, and we were sucked in immediately to try and understand karma and emptiness. So that was the how and why we got into Buddhism. That was back in 1998, 99, somewhere around there. And so we immediately, let's see how this worked. We went to another teaching of his in California, and he said that after they did their 3-year retreat, they would be teaching the Tantra courses. But in order to get into those courses, you needed to have certificates for all of the 18 ACI Foundation courses. So we immediately ordered all of the material. And back then, it came in cassettes. Now, most of you aren't old enough to remember what a cassette is. You think of CDs or USB drives, but we ordered all this. And I'll never forget the day that 2 enormous boxes were delivered to our house, and they contained all of the ACI courses. You think about it, we had an incredible volume of Dharma in 2 boxes waiting for us. So we started taking the courses, and we found out an interesting thing about the courses. If you don't set a timetable taking ACI, you'll put it off and it'll take forever to complete one course. So we sat down and we said, okay, Sunday night we'll listen to the class and we'll do the homework. Tuesday and Monday, so that's Sunday. Monday we'll take the quiz. And then Tuesday we'll take the next class. So we had a very rigid schedule. And we gave ourselves Friday night to do something goofy, not take a class. And by doing that, we were able to get through all of the courses so that when he got out of retreat, we were able to qualify for the Tantra courses at Diamond Mountain. So the lesson I learned from this is I try and get my students to set a schedule and make it realistic if, to complete the courses, because if you don't, we found out quickly. We took a class at the beginning. We took a class and said, okay, we'll listen to tape number two, maybe tomorrow. Oh, we're busy, maybe next week. And we found it took a month to listen to three tapes, which wasn't going to get us where we wanted to be. So I urge you, if you're interested in the foundation courses, set aside the time, be serious, set aside the time, and take the courses because you want to and you want to get them finished. And I think you'll find it really worked out much better. So that's how and when we got started.
Thank you. It's a great advice. I stuck with my ACI course 3 for 3 years. I couldn't move on, and it took me a lot.
Is this something that you understand when I do this? Oh,
No,
that
not
means
me.
bad girl, naughty girl. I hope that
Yeah,
wasn't obscene.
it's okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm studying ACI for 12 years, and I have finished 12 courses. So,
Well, that's not bad. That's not bad. We were able to
pro
we studied all 18 and got them. I can't remember how long it took, but it was the fact that we were both very interested in it helped. And we found that when we listened to Geshe-la teach the diamond cutter, we were very pleased to see it was didactic. There's a lecture, there's homework, there's quizzes, there's reading, there's a final, and you get a certificate, just like in college. And we found that to be a wonderful way to learn the Dharma. And my students that have done well in their studies and their practice and their life are the students that have studied the ACI courses and done the homework, quizzes, and final. I know several that haven't, and they don't do as well. So do the ACI courses regularly on schedule, and don't take 12 years to get ACI 3. I'm just
yeah.
kind of kidding you.
Thank you. Thank you. That's a great advice. And probably everything we would like to do, we can do just set up the schedule and do it.
Right.
It's not just about ACA courses, everything what we want
Yeah, well,
really
that's
to.
true. That's very true. My wife likes to make lists. I do too, but she makes lists. She gets up in the morning and makes a list what's going to happen today. I get up in the morning, I do my physical therapy, and I think about lunch. So anyway, so that's how we got started. Um, then we heard that he was going to set up something, a retreat. He's going to do a deep retreat. And I gave my business card to one of his students and said, if you need help with this retreat, building these retreat shelters, let me know. So I got a call that they needed help. And luckily, I had quite a few days of vacation time from my job as a research scientist. So I rented a small RV and drove out to the place they were going to do their retreat and spent 2 weeks helping set up the first 3 retreat. And then from there, it just blossomed into moving to Diamond Mountain and helping create the retreat center.
That's great. So you planted seeds for your 3-year retreat by helping Geshe-la do his 3-year retreat.
Yes, at the time I didn't know I was doing that, but now in retrospect, yes. And I have to say, um, those were my years at Diamond Mountain, helping build it and doing the 3-year retreat. were some of the best years of my life. I was very fortunate in my career as a scientist to not be able to get up early enough or stay late enough. I loved what I did, except for one job. One job, I got to work at 8 o'clock and had my hour lunch and left at 5 and hated it. But 90% of what I did as a scientist, I absolutely loved. And when I was at Diamond Mountain, we decided to build our house at Diamond Mountain so that we could truly be involved. If we had built in the nearby town of Bowie, we would have had to drive 12 miles in order to get started. And I knew as operations manager, I needed to be on the property. So smartest thing we did was build that house. And that allowed me to get up at 4 in the morning if I needed to and be ready to go to work and stay up until 2 in the morning finishing projects. And I must say, I give my wife, my lovely wife, a tremendous amount of credit because she supported, I'm the cook in the family, and she supported me being late to cook dinner, um, didn't complain because we both knew what we were doing was helping a very powerful karmic object in Geshe Michael and Lama Christie uh, complete their dreams.
That's amazing. And you did it for all 3 years, didn't you?
Oh, well, no, we went into 3 retreat, and the December before we got out, I was struggling to go up a hill that I normally could walk up very easily. And I got to the top of the hill to the Sky Dome, and I felt better. I did what I needed to do. I was carrying 30 pounds of tools, and I went down the hill, and I felt fine. And when I started to come out of the wash, the dry riverbed, I again was struggling. I couldn't catch my breath. So, long story short, I had to leave the retreat for a couple of weeks because I had massive pulmonary embolisms. I had blood clots in my heart and my lung, and I had to go out. And I never forget, I heard in the background in the emergency room, I heard the voice of a doctor say, 3,000. I've never heard of the number 3,000 for this test. And I thought, I know who he's talking about. And seconds later, he came into my emergency room, curtained off area, and he said, Mr. Stumpf, you should be dead. And I thought, well, that's not a very nice thing to say to a patient. He said, you have a D dimer of 3,000. 300 is considered fatal. So that was an indication I had massive blood clots in my system. And I had the karma to have the small hospital in Wilcox have a CRT, a CAT scan and a nuclear magnetic resonance scanner. And they were able to confirm that I was one sick puppy. So my karma ripened to have that equipment there when it was needed to help diagnose me. So I went back into the 3-year retreat and completed it. But I've been on clot medicine ever since. So
Something unbelievable. So, MRI equipment was in Bowie for you
no, I was in Wilcox,
and Wilcox.
the
Oh,
hospital in Wilcox. Yeah,
awesome.
Bowie is this very small. I hesitate to call it town, community,
Okay.
maybe 100 people. And yeah, no, it wasn't in Bowie. Wilcox is much larger, but it's a half an hour away.
It was great. And it was unbelievable how good Dharma uh, Dharma deeds could create, could save our life. When
Right,
when
right.
you
No,
have karma to die, you don't.
yeah. No, that's a very good point. I when I was much younger, before I had any idea of the Dharma, when I was 14 or 15 years old, back in 1968. Most of you weren't alive then, I don't think. Um, I remember when I started driving that I would stop and help people on the side of the road that had flat tires. And the reason I did that was because I felt if I helped others with their flat tires, I could expect someone to help my mom or my sisters and my dad and my brother, etc. Um, I had no idea of karma and no idea of emptiness. I just thought if I do something nice like that, then I can expect something nice to be done to my loved ones. And look what happened. I survived. So, and I didn't know anything about karma and emptiness back then. If you struggle with karma and emptiness now, think what it was like for me when I sat through the diamond cutter as my introduction to the concept of ACI and the teaching. I just, to this day, I'm thank God it wasn't course 13. If it had been the logic course, I probably wouldn't have stayed.
Yeah.
So another thing happened at Diamond Mountain that was very important in my life, extremely important, and that is I was in an accident, and let me tell you about that. So one of my favorite courses is the death meditation module, where we go over the concept of Buddhist concept of death and dying and what happens. And I took that course very seriously, and I teach it very seriously. And I had an opportunity to experience what I taught very clearly at Diamond Mountain one day. I was going to El Paso, Texas, which is 4 hours from Diamond Mountain to teach. And it was very windy. And I left and I stopped in Bowie to get the mail. And I realized we had gotten a permit, building permit. So I turned around and went back to Diamond Mountain to give the building permit to one of the contractors. And when I got back to Diamond Mountain, one of the door to the temple had slammed shut in this bad wind and cracked. So we we're going to need to replace the door. So now I'm late. I'm going to be late to El Paso. So I'm speeding away from Diamond Mountain. And as I make the last turn toward Apache Pass Road, I roll my truck. Not flip, I rolled my truck twice. It came up on all four tires and engine running. The right side of the passenger, or the passenger side was collapsed. If I'd been on that side, I would have been dead. And the engine's running. I'm bleeding from a small cut on my ring finger. And I say to myself, if this is my Tushita heaven, it looks a hell of a lot like Diamond Mountain. But the key and the reason for this story is as I was rolling my truck, I was not frightened. I was not thinking about all the things I hadn't done because I took the death meditation course and I had my affairs in order. My wife knew I loved her. I never leave the house angry. She never leaves the house angry. I knew that if something happened to me, she knew what needed to be done with all my stuff. So I wasn't thinking, oh, I didn't do this. Oh, I didn't do that. No, instead I was thinking, well, now I get to see what happens when you die. That peace of mind was worth all of the study I've done with ACI. So I drove the truck back to Diamond Mountain and it ran fine. And I stopped to go use the phone and Bert came out. I told Bert, we asked why I was back. And I said, I rolled my truck. I have to cancel El Paso. And he said, no, you didn't. And I said, well, you go take a look at my truck and tell me I didn't. So he looked and I drove up to the house. My wife was in retreat inside the house. And I left her a note that said, I just rolled my truck. I'm going to lay down. If something starts to smell in a couple of days, it's probably me because I'm dead on the bed. And I have a weird sense of humor. And the next morning, I got up, and I don't know if any of you have this situation, but I thought, maybe this is a dream. Maybe I really didn't roll my truck. So I crept around the side of the house and I peeked over where my truck was parked. I rolled my truck. And I love that truck. Not as much as I love my lovely wife, but I really love that truck. People couldn't eat in my truck. If you drove my truck, you had to take responsibility for it. I let very few people drive it. I didn't have a name for my truck, however. Oh, one part of the story of the hospital that I think will intrigue people is my first nurse when I was in the hospital. Her name was Tara. And I practiced the White Tara Tantra. So I thought that was pretty fun. So what else do you want to talk about?
That's beautiful stories, and I love your stories so much, and probably not just me.
No,
That's
I
great.
have something else.
Yes, please.
I'm a scientist, a plant biochemist by training. So I work in a laboratory. I wanted to be an engineer, but calculus and I were not the best of friends. And I decided I didn't want to drive on a bridge that I designed. So I didn't become an engineer. I became a research scientist with curiosity and reasonably good with computers. And so there came a time at Diamond Mountain when Geshe Michael asked someone to build the water system. And I said that somebody else was offering to do it with a technique I was pretty sure wouldn't work. So I stepped up and I said, Geshe, I'll do it for you. And he said, well, I have $100,000 pledged to build a water system. Let me know if you can do it for that money. So I immediately sat down and put together a budget and all this. And I had the opportunity to build a water system for how many cabins? How many cabins? I think 35 cabins. And that was a lot of fun, a lot of very hard work. But we built the water system. And one of my students in Tucson's father was a hydrologist, an engineer with about water systems. And I sat down with him and he gave me formulas and I put them into spreadsheets and I did all these calculations and it was feasible. I could build it. And one day I asked him for another formula and he looked at me and he said, David, just build the damn thing. So that's when I started actually building it. And I calculated the water pressure at our cabin to be 53.2 psi. And it came out to be 52 something psi when I measured it, actually measured it. So all of my calculations were valid, and the water system, I'll never forget one of the contractors that had been transporting water to lay a concrete foundation. Uh, when he was able to turn a tap on at his construction site and have water flow out of it, the joy on his face was priceless, absolutely priceless. So, one of the many things I did right in my life, I should say one of the few things I did right in my life, because I get credit, karmic credit, for every time someone drinks water at Diamond Mountain. So, yay.
This
So,
is amazing. Geshe-la always say that every retreat I was in Diamond Mountain, every retreat I've heard from him that, you drink water. You know why you can drink water in your cottage? Because David Stump did it. He put all the water system by his hands. How many miles is it? There are a huge amount of miles of
no,
water tubes or something.
it's not all that. I calculated it once. I think it's about 3 miles,
Three
which is
miles.
nothing to sniff. Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
You put tanks, you put
Well, I
every
designed it. Each cabin had what I called a reserve tank, 500 or 1,000 gallon reserve tank, because if something went wrong with the water system, I didn't want each cabin to not have water. And if you have 1,000 gallon tank and you're even with my lovely wife, we didn't use more than 15 gallons a day. So 15 into 1,000, that's 60 some days. We'd survive without the water system. And so that meant it could get fixed, obviously, as soon as possible. So the design was such that there was emergency water. And a couple of times we had, I don't know what 12 degrees Fahrenheit is. It's something obscurely cold in Celsius. Anyway, the first month of the retreat in January of 2011, we had temperatures down in the 5 degrees uh, Fahrenheit, and that froze and cracked a lot of the water system. So the reserve tanks were very important at that point.
I
So
used to volunteer at Diamond Mountain and I observed all this water system, all these tanks and everything. And this is a huge amount of work, I can say. This is a
uh,
lot.
because I loved what I was doing and I had such support from my wife, um, it was fun. I, I, I just I had fun. I had joyous effort, perfection of joyous effort. I was, I've been very fortunate in my Dharma career to have joyous effort be my first perfection. I like giving and everything else, but I really, joyous effort. It's so much more fun to do something because you want to rather than because you have to. And sometimes those two things get mixed up. But yeah, I was probably next to marrying my lovely wife and meeting Geshe Michael and Lama Christie. I'd have to say that putting together the water system was probably one of the highlights of my life. And then meeting all my students, that's also a highlight in my life. So So what else can I share with you? Oh man, I've been talking. Is that speed of talking okay?
It, it's great.
It's
Thank
too
you.
fast.
It's good. Very good. Thank you.
Okay. I have to get ready for when I teach in Armenia and Romania in August, because that's going to be simultaneous translation.
Yeah, and you're doing great,
Well,
I
thank
can
you.
say. Thank you.
Oh, I know another story that I think is important for students. Um, I have Parkinson's disease, which I find to be a very inconvenient disease to have. I have a tremor. It's hard to get dressed. I can't type anymore. But I put all that in perspective when I first heard that I had Parkinson's. I went to my car. My wife was in Colorado. I went to my car. I cried for about a minute, and then I made up 4 jokes. And I'm going to tell you the jokes, even though I know they don't translate into Russian very well. But maybe Ukrainian will translate better. So, what's the favorite drink, alcoholic beverage of a Parkinson's patient? A martini, shaken, not stirred. That's a James Bond line. Why? How do you know a Morse code operator has Parkinson's? They stutter.
What is stutter? I don't know the word.
No, I can't complete my sentence
Oh,
because I still stutter. That's so you can imagine in Morse code operators. Dee 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 dee. I thought that was a pretty good joke. Then why are we considered to be so friendly? We're always waving. Why are we considered to be so angry? We're always shaking our fists. So those are my 4 jokes. Anyway, I immediately, when I got diagnosed after I cried and made up my 4 jokes, I said to myself, the how and the why. How did I get Parkinson's? Quite possibly because of the chemicals I used as a scientist. Solvents, benzene, methyl ethyl ketone, um, nasty solvents. But why did I get Parkinson's? Because other people that use those chemicals don't get Parkinson's. The why I got Parkinson's was because I inconvenienced other people in previous lives. I must have done that very powerfully because Parkinson's is inconvenient for me. I don't drive anymore, so I have to find people to drive me to doctor's appointments if my lovely wife can't. I can't type anymore. I love to type. I write military histories as a hobby. Not being able to drive anymore is uh, is really inconvenient for me. I don't taste anything. I have virtually no sense of taste. So now food is much less interesting to me. And I go on, I look for textures in food. I did taste some fennel a while back, and I almost tasted, I got a faint hint of pineapple the other night. So I inconvenienced people in the past. That's ripening now as my Parkinson's. And because it's of common emptiness, there is absolutely no reason that I couldn't wake up tomorrow and not have Parkinson's. I could have finally burned off the last karmic seed for Parkinson's. And I firmly believe that because it's true. Through karma and emptiness, the only reason I have Parkinson's is how I treated others in the past. And if I recognize that, and if you ask me for something and I say, well, I'll get to it, versus asking for something and I drop what I'm doing and I go get it for you so that you're not inconvenienced, and I dedicate that, that's how I'm going to not have Parkinson's, perhaps in this lifetime. So I'm thinking about what I call your past is your present and your present is your future. Your past deeds, I don't know what I did. I must have inconvenienced people, is ripening in my present. How I react to that is what's making my future. So if I react with wisdom, then my future will not hold this very inconvenient disease. If I can burn off all the seeds and not plant new ones.
So what did you do to plant new seeds?
Well,
How did you manage these seeds things with Parkinson disease?
well, I look at Parkinson's as being very inconvenient. So I make sure I don't inconvenience others. So if you were to ask me, um, well, I can't think of a good question now. So someone asked me something about the water system. Instead of saying, oh, I'll get to that tonight or tomorrow, I'll get back to you in the next couple of days, I immediately go and find out the information for them and send it to them right away and dedicate that to my burning off yet another karmic seed for for inconveniencing others and being inconvenienced by Parkinson.
So you're doing just immediately.
As soon as I can,
Mhm.
because I burn off a seed. First of all, I ripen and burn off a seed for Parkinson's. And then by immediately helping somebody else, I'm setting the seed to not inconvenience others. I'm setting seeds to have helped others. And then one day, those seeds will start to ripen faster and more powerfully than the inconvenience seeds. Now, because I've had countless lives, I've probably have countless seeds for inconveniencing people. So this is an important thing to keep in mind. The fact that I haven't woken up and not had Parkinson's does not stop me from believing it could happen, because I realize the reason I still have Parkinson's is I have a lot of seeds for inconveniencing people. So the fact that I haven't burned them all off doesn't particularly deter me. I just need to keep burning them off and reacting with wisdom.
This is great. You're a great example how to be so wise and so strong in your beliefs.
Well,
We often lose our beliefs because it seems for us that no, I cannot do it, or no, it's too difficult. No, but you are strong.
well, there's a teaching that we give. That's what I call it's my karma. It's when you think to yourself, it's my karma, but in this case, I'll do this, even though I know it's a bad idea. And it's not your karma, but it's your karma so. So don't do that. Now, in English, so, S-O, sounds very much like S-O-W, which is sow seeds. So in English, it's very easy to say it's my karma so, thinking SOW rather than SO. Now, apparently in other languages, it's not, the two words don't coalesce like that. What is so? So I'm not gonna, so the word so, SOW in English, what's that equivalent in Russian? What's the
М,
word?
Видеть, я так понимаю.
Okay, what's
No?
the word for sow seeds?
Алена машет головой. Э, Итак, sow seed. Okay. So it's plant seeds. Yeah?
The SOW is planting seeds. SO means so I didn't do that. So it's just it's alliteration is something I really like in the English language. Um, one of my
Thank you,
favorite
Svetlana.
one of my favorite alliterations. This is way off the subject, but I tend to do that. One of my favorite alliterations is to explain what happens when you get food poisoning. You have an urge to purge that comes in a surge. That's alliteration. I don't know if that's even possible in the Russian language.
I don't know if it's possible in the Russian and Ukrainian, but um,
Anyway, I happen to like that. But okay, so what else can I share?
it would be great if you can share not just your strength in beliefs in planting seeds, but how can you help people who doesn't have so strong beliefs, who just trying to plant seeds and who are sick? How can we feel better if we have something like Parkinson or uh, MS, multiple sclerosis, or some other stuff which is going on for years or decades? How can we fix this using your wisdom seed system?
Well, it's that's a good question. Now I'm speechless, which is rare for me. Um, let's see. Well, it really comes down to the fact that I believe in past and future lives. I understand, I have a beginner's understanding of karma and emptiness to realize that when we say they're two sides of the same coin, you have to you have to think that you have to completely understand that things are coming from you. The pen is coming from you, not from it. Now, do I understand that absolutely completely? I still wonder. We talk about projecting onto data. Well, where's the data? I've projected the data as well. That's something I'm struggle with. But I don't let it stop me. I don't understand it completely, but I understand that I'm projecting everything in my world. And because of that, my karma, I can set the karma to do the projecting that I want. Now, it's not, I can't do it right now, immediately, but because I firmly believe in karma and emptiness, I can think to myself that I could wake up without Parkinson's. Now, I could wake up without Parkinson's and have a stroke. I don't hope that doesn't happen, but it's possible. So I I think if you're a Buddhist practitioner and you have a disease, you have an illness, um, for me, it's much easier to deal with. I frankly, don't know how people deal with Parkinson's that don't have a Buddhist background. I really don't. So
So plant seeds if you have some diseases like
If you have a
in
discomfort, if you have anything wrong with you, stop and look and try and figure out the seeds. Um, and a piece of advice is don't look at the seed one to one. So um, let's see, what's a good example? Well, what's a good example? Oh, well, if I want to get what I want, I need to make sure others get what they need. Now, if I want a new computer, and I'm not saying I want a new computer, so no one send me a new computer. Well, you can send me a one. No, I'm kidding. Don't send me a computer. Um, if I need a new computer, I need to go out and find someone who needs something equally important to them. It doesn't have to be a computer. It could be that they need to find a particular song that they really like on YouTube. If I help them find that song and get what they want, I'm setting the seeds to get what I need, a new computer. So finding a song, how does that translate into a new computer? It's because I helped with wisdom someone get what they need. I'm setting the seeds for my karma to ripen to get what I need. And here's a great example from my research for one of my books. I had read an article written by a military historian who had access to classified documents, and he mentioned several things in this classified document that he could talk about that weren't classified. So I thought when I started my last book that it was classified. I'd never get a chance to look at that. And one day, about a year ago, I said, I'm going to try and get that declassified. So I got on the phone to an acquaintance at the National Archives and I said to him, his name was David, I said, David, can you help me find and see if there's a copy of this document in the archives? And he said, sure. So he got back to me later in the day and he said, I found the document. That's the good news. The bad news is it's not in the box it should be in. And I thought, oh, rats. And he goes, but the good news is there are two cards that tell me where it is. And I went and looked, and I have the two volumes in my hand. And I said, well, what are the chances of my getting them declassified? And he said, let's find out. So he walked down the hall to his Air Force declassification officer and he asked him. And he came back to the phone and he said, they're declassified. 800 pages of that document were now declassified, and I could have copies of them. And that, I firmly believe, came about because I helped other people get what they needed as soon as possible and dedicated and dedicated. That's that's the only way I can explain how it's even possible that something like that would happen. I've had things I've requested to be declassified take 9 years to be declassified. 9 years. And why is it taking 9 years? Because in the past, I didn't help people get what they needed as soon as I could. It's just that simple.
it's
Uh,
just that simple.
what they don't tell you is it's just that simple, and you have to have patience. So the perfection of giving, moral discipline, not getting angry, joyous effort, concentration, and wisdom.
when we say about like six perfections and some other stuff, we know these words, some of us, but how to use them in your life, how to use them in your practice, this is the most important thing.
Well,
Because
the
we can.
perfection,
Mhm.
yeah, the perfection, six perfections are a roadmap. They're the tool the Bodhisattva uses to get to reach their goal of total enlightenment. Now, it's easy to say, it rolls off my tongue. That's easy to say. Okay, perfection of giving, giving shelter, giving money, giving shelter, giving the Dharma. So you do all of that. You give money, so you donate, um, donate to worthy causes. Um, Shelter, you provide someone with shelter, with protection. That's what shelter is. And then you give the Dharma. So I've moved right to the end and I give Dharma as much as I can.
The
Perfection given.
highest form. This is the highest form,
Yeah.
and we are happy to hear your Dharma.
Yeah.
Thank you
That,
so much.
well, you're welcome. And perfection of giving, moral discipline, not getting angry. Now here's a conundrum. Do you know what conundrum means?
I don't.
Conundrum,
Probably.
here's a problem, a conundrum. And my conundrum is, as a bodhisattva, I'm not supposed to get angry at another bodhisattva. So don't get angry with anybody, including myself, because I'm a bodhisattva, so I can get mad at myself and I'm getting angry at a bodhisattva. So, so I can't get mad at myself. Well, some mornings I get a little frustrated with how slow I'm getting dressed, so I get mad. Now, have I broken my root of virtue? Have I destroyed my root of virtue? Well, I'm looking into that for the teaching I'm giving in Armenia and Romania. And you have to get really mad at a bodhisattva. Really mad. Annoyed doesn't count. Annoyed doesn't ruin your root of virtue. So I get annoyed with myself, but I don't get so mad that I throw something. And here's another conundrum with the 10 virtues, virtuous deeds, not lying. So what are the stealing, lying, sexual misconduct? So not lying. Does the concept of a white lie exist in the Russian?
Yes, it
Yeah.
exists, but
Yeah.
I don't know
So
if it's.
a white lie is a lie you tell to not hurt someone else's feelings, but it's still a lie. So catch yourself throughout the day, then the weeks and months ahead, when you say something that's a white lie, because it is a lie. You are setting the seeds to have people not be honest with you. Now, am I perfect about not telling white lies? I work really hard to not say something that's not true. So, for instance, my lovely wife says, Sumati, how many people were on the uh, class this morning? I could say, well, 22. And I'd be lying because I think there are more than 22. But that's a white lie. Now, what I couldn't say instead is, I don't know, but it seemed like probably 20 or 30. That isn't a white lie because I said I don't know. But I could say to impress her, I could say, oh, I had 3 screens full. I had 150 people. So I could say that. And how big a deal is that? It's a white lie. It's a lie. It's going to come back to me as people not being truthful to me. Now, I don't just go sit in a corner all day and hope nothing happens. I take my practice actively. I don't practice just on the cushion. I practice 24/7, 365.
This is why you are a great example for all of us.
Well, I'm not sure how great an example. I'm a big example. I'm 6'2". I'm a tall example.
One day, I don't know, maybe 5 years ago, something, I was volunteering at Diamond Mountain and all the retreatants came, just arrived, and one lady, she was just a business person and she was late and she came in and she said, I need to talk to a boss, to a main person here. I have a question. And she was looking around. There were a lot of people. And she looked at David and she said, is he a boss? It was about 100 people there.
Oh, I have an aura. I am the boss. I am the boss.
I said, why? How did you found it? And she said, he looks like a boss.
Tell my lovely wife that. I look like the boss.
Somehow, yeah.
So
So
I don't have much
what
more I can think of. What?
what other wonderful stories could teach us how to practice?
Hmm.
I'm very grateful for your advices about how to do ACI courses, really. But maybe some other stuff, how to practice when you are sick. So our point here in health studio is there are some sick people, and most of us have something like running nose or cancer or something, and how to deal with it.
No,
What can we
well,
do? How can we find? You said one small question, big question, isn't it? I don't know. How to find the seed which is a cause of my sickness? Could
uh,
you tell us your secret? How did you find that it's
well,
inconvenience or something?
um, Parkinson's to me is the minute I found out I had it, it was inconvenient. I couldn't type anymore. I have trouble walking now. Cook, I'm the cook in the house, and when you're doing this, trying to cut something, it doesn't cut very well. Um, so I don't. Well, I still cut things, but I have to be careful because I tend to form blood clots, so I'm on blood thinners. So if I cut myself, that's not good. So so take a look at your illness and what's the main result of the illness. For me, Parkinson's, the main result is inconvenience. So how do I how do I inconvenience people now? Um, that's a good example of how I might have inconvenienced someone in the past. Um, well, when here's this is a funny story. I was in charge of operations at Diamond Mountain. And when people came to the temple for class, they had to take their shoes off. So I put in shelves that people could put their shoes on, so it wasn't littering the floor. Because we had a lady break her ankle tripping over some shoes once, and so I got known for being the shoe sheriff, the shoe police at Diamond Mountain. And I'd come in to go to class, and there'd be shoes on the floor and when there are empty slots on the shelves. So the first time I saw that, I actually, in my mind, thought I should take the shoes and throw them as far into the desert as I could. And that would have people would understand the need to put the shoes on the shelf. But I didn't want that karma. So I had movement of the mind. I thought it, so I set a seed the possibility of a seed like that, but I didn't complete the thought. So the path of action was not completed. Yes, I'm going to have some kind of karma for thinking that, but no, not the kind that would be me having to go look out in the desert for my shoes. So a good friend of mine put his shoes, I saw his shoes were on the floor and not on the shelf. So I picked them up and I put them on the shelf, but it was a very far back corner shelf. He could see them if he looked. And so I came out to get my shoes, and Doug said, I left my shoes right here. And I said, and where would that be, Doug? And on the floor. And I said, and where they're supposed to go, Doug? On the shelf. Well, look on the shelf and you'll probably find your shoes where they should have been to begin with. So if you're, I can't really make a relation to someone with a different um, disease. Look for the main issue you have in your life with your disease. Let's say it's skin cancer. I've had several skin cancers removed, so I have to be careful being outside in the sun, and especially at Diamond Mountain, which is at about 5,000 feet, and the ultraviolet ray up there is quite a bit more than down in Tucson. And so I have to be careful not being in the sun too much without wearing some kind of shirt or hat. So the karma for me getting skin cancer is not protecting other people's lives. So I need to be sure if I don't want to have skin cancer again, one way to set the seeds for me not having it anymore is to make sure that anybody that comes to our house in Tucson or at Diamond Mountain when I'm there, I make sure I don't go around telling people, hey, you should wear a hat, you should do this, you should do that. Um, but I try and set by example. So on a hot day, I might be wearing a long sleeve shirt, and someone would say, aren't you hot? And I would say, well, I'm protecting my skin from sun, from ultraviolet and getting skin cancer. It's a hard correlation. Maybe, no, I hate to say this because I don't want another project, but maybe I should make a correlation table for illnesses versus karma that, you know,
This is a great idea, and I had this
no,
idea and I
it's a
tried.
terrible, it's a terrible idea. I didn't hear you.
I love this idea. I love uh I your website where some Dharma points by numbers.
Oh, book of lists.
Book of lists. It's amazing. You can find everything there. So
Yeah,
book
that
of
was my
illnesses. That's
book of
interesting.
illnesses. Hmm. I've wanted to do that book of lists for a long time and finally was able to do it. That was a lot of fun. That was a lot of fun. And to have it in so many different languages is uh, is a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's
So,
great. So maybe we can ask you about illnesses. How can we find
well,
the
I'll,
causes?
I'll have to think about that.
It's really helpful for people. Thank you, Svetlana, for the book of lists link in the chat. If you are interested in wonderful resource for all the Dharma, all the numbers regarding Dharma, you can have a look to this website. So, and now I'm happy to offer you, dear participants, an opportunity to ask your question to Venerable Sumati. who have a question, please, you have two options. You can raise your hand and ask, or type it in the chat. And you have 13 minutes for your questions. And because we are kind of health studio, we can ask health questions also. Evgeny, please. Can you unmute yourself?
Всем здравствуйте. У меня вопрос к досточному Сумати, но он, правда, не очень касается здоровья. В прошлом году вы
Yes,
рассказывали... В прошлом году вы
Please,
нам...
yes.
Женя, подожди, я буду переводить тогда, да? Или нет? Okay. So, Venerable Sumati, could you please go to English channel?
I'm on the English channel.
Okay, great. So
Yes,
everyone
yes.
who would like to listen English, please go to English channel. It's on the three dots and...
I've got it. I can hear.
Okay, so find English channel and three dots and translation icon, globe icon, and you can listen English.
Yes, I'm there. Okay, Evgeny.
Evgeny, go ahead.
Дорогой Лама Сумати, в прошлом году вы рассказывали нам о двух своих опытах, которые очень были похожи на причину и следствие, когда вы посмотрели на стол, и вы были убеждены, что кружки там нет. Но вы точно знали, ее там нет, но вы ее видели перед собой. И вы очень коротко об этом рассказали. А не могли бы вы поподробнее рассказать о вот нескольких своих опытах, которые были похожи на это? Пожалуйста.
I don't remember that at all. I don't, a cup that wasn't there. Oh, it wasn't a cup. It was my headlamp. So I was taking a trip to South Africa, and I always take a headlamp with me on my carry-on luggage because I have this fantasy that I alone on the airplane will have a flashlight when someone needs it. And so I always take it on the plane, which is silly. If we crash an airplane, the chances of my being alive to use a flashlight are pretty remote. So I look on the console on my truck, my beloved truck, and I can't see the headlamp. So I went and bought a new one to take with me because I wanted to have a flashlight with me. I get back and get into the car, and there's my headlamp. So what had happened was I was looking for a specific colored pattern on my headlamp and didn't see it, even though the headlamp was the headlamp there? I don't know. It was when I got back. So my expectation or my projection wasn't what I was projecting, and I didn't see the headlamp. I think that's the story. So
Okay, thank you. Another questions? If somebody would like to ask something? Otherwise, I will ask.
I see her. Albina. Okay. Unmute.
Okay, can you hear me right now?
Yes, I can.
Thank you so much, Lama Sumati. And I have a question about the health. Just recently, my neighbor passed away, and She was 59 years old and she had multiple cancers in her body. I visited her in hospital and palliative care many times, and I was thinking, how could I help her? So what could have done to make her maybe feel better, or what person in that situation can do?
Wow,
Thank you.
that's a tough question. Well, I think what you could do, I think what I would do is just sincerely look at them and say, how can I help you? What can I do that would make you more comfortable? And they say, well, if you ask me that, I'd probably say, well, nothing. But gently ask. And then if they tell you something, whether you can do it or not, well, I'm trying to think this through. I would say, how can I help you? Do you need something to read? Is there something we can talk about? Tell me about when you were little, when you were young. Do something that would hopefully make them be happy, take their mind off their pain. And the important thing is to ask them and listen, because when my wife has one of her migraine headaches, I know she likes ice cream. We both like ice cream. But giving her ice cream when she has a migraine headache is me trying to make her happy when what she wants is compassion to take away her suffering. Love is making someone happy. Compassion is taking away suffering. So I need to make sure when I ask, I don't say to her, here, have some ice cream. That'll make you feel better. I need to ask, what would make you feel better? So with your next door neighbor, your friend, what can I do to make you feel better? And they'll probably say, oh, there's nothing. And you say, no, really, can I read to you? Can I get you something to read? Would you like to go for a walk? How about telling me some stories from your childhood? Doing something to help to make them feel better. That's because you can't feel, I mean, you could go with a pen and but you have to be careful with the pen because many people, if you say something like the pen example, they'll look at you like you're crazy. So you could try that. You certainly could try it. You might be surprised. That would probably be one of the first things I would try is after I ask if I can, how I can help them, you could say, let me describe something that's helped me understand my world, and maybe it'll help you understand yours. And do the pen.
Thank you.
Thank you, dear
That's
Sumati.
what I
Thank
try.
you.
You're welcome.
It's important to hear from you how we can use this knowledge, how we can use it in practice, how we can
Well,
use it in real life.
one thing to remember very, very clearly is your practice. You don't do your practice in the morning. You do your practice all day. And you look for signs all day. When I mean signs, I don't mean a sign on a written sign. The fact that my first nurse when I was ill with my blood clots was named Tara was the sign. I was being protected. My karma is ripening for me to be protected by Tara. Now, Tara the nurse may have nothing to do with Buddhism, but I'm projecting her, and I'm projecting her as Tara helping me. And that's what happened. So a sign that my practice is working.
That's amazing. And let's look for signs. Thank you so much, dear Sumati. Thank you for your time and your precious, precious wisdom.
Well,
I
thank you
hope
for the
we can
opportunity.
follow. I hope we can become like you
Oh, well,
somehow
no, you
one
don't
day.
want Parkinson's. You don't want
No, without Parkinson.
But I look at all your lovely faces and I'm so pleased I could help. And if you're not taking the ACI courses, please start taking them and come to Diamond Mountain and hopefully I'll have a chance to meet you. And I'm really pleased to see so many people I recognize. Um, I'm trying to remember, I think it's pronounced Ratislav. Weren't you at the Barcelona? What? Yeah, yeah. That's good to see you. It's good to see everybody. I see so many. Now, Katya, are you on your cell phone while you're driving? No. Okay, good. Oh, there's Tatiana with her mom. Hi. And Anastasia, good to see you. And Katerina, Evgeny. I'm trying. Marina, you were at Barcelona, right, Marina? Yeah. And Daria and Svetlana and Arita. Thank you so much for translating. I I am in awe of I'm in awe of translators' capabilities. Who else am I? I'm looking at my other screen. Um,
Thank you, dear translators. Thank you, Areta. Thank you, Maria, for translating for us to Russian and Ukrainian. And
okay.
thank you, Venerable Samati. This is amazing to see you because so many students, your students, are here to meet you, to know you better, to know about your lives, to listen your stories.
Well, I've told, now you've heard them all. I'm going to have to get some new ones.
I'm sure you have a lot more that you said,
Um,
but you can tell us them maybe next
maybe,
time.
maybe next time. Thank you for
Thank
this opportunity to share what I do know. And I wish you all you reach your goal of total enlightenment in this lifetime. And I will do whatever I can to help you with that quest. So go about and have a nice evening. I guess it's in Moscow, it's what, 10 hours ahead?
Yeah, it's
So
10
it's
hours.
8 p.m. on a Friday night. Um, go have some ice cream. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you
Bye
so
bye.
much. Thank you for your time. Thank you, everyone, for coming to us. And you're lucky to be here with Venerable Samadhi.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.